Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Caffeine Encrypted, and we are back with an updated tutorial for waste for workers and resources. First, let's have a look at the types of waste that are now part of the game. Mixed waste is the basic and sorted group of waste that can contain every other type of waste besides hazardous. Construction waste is mainly acquired independently when demolishing buildings, and it can also be converted into gravel, metal scrap. It can be found in both hazardous waste and mixed waste, and it can be converted to steel. Aluminum scrap, it can be converted into aluminum. Plastic waste can be converted into plastic. Biological waste can be converted to fertilizer. Hazardous waste needs to be processed and turned into mixed waste. Burnable waste and other waste can be burned on the incinerator and it produces ash. Ash can't be processed into anything. Instead, it needs to be stored separately and it decays over time. It can also be exported to the border for a small cost. Okay, let's talk about buildings. We have 6 collectors that can collect waste from our buildings. 2 of them can connect with footpaths, while the remaining ones require a road path. If we look over here, we have the small ones, so those 2 are for the pedestrians that can connect on pedestrian paths, and those 2 can connect on roads. What's the difference? The ones on the left, they can only store mixed waste. The ones on the right, they can actually filter the waste considering you have the research for your people. While the other ones, the big containers, the ones we see on the right side over here, they have much bigger capacity and are generally much better in crowded areas. The good thing with those, you can filter them as you like, considering you have the research. Also, it's important to note, none of the small collectors can collect construction waste. So for your industries, you're gonna need big ones regardless. Next, we have 3 different dumps. We have a small, a medium, and a free. The free ones, you're limited to how many you can place down. You can only create 5, but they cost no resources. The other 2, the only difference between them is the capacity. One can hold 80 tons, the other can hold 270. These ones can only hold one type of waste, and nothing else. One common use for them is you can connect them with a factory connection to a building, and they act as a bit of an extra storage for that building. If you store biological waste on an open dump, or ash will decay and biological waste will turn into fertilizer. Also, when it comes to those, it's quick to unload on them, but very slow to load from them. And to help with the loading speed, we have these dumps with a claw machine. This will allow for quick loading and unloading on your trucks, or if you use the big one, sort of quick loading and unloading on your trains. Again, this can store only a single type of resource and they can be connected with a factory connection to any building that has a factory connection. Same principle as the other dumps. If you let biological waste there, it would turn into fertilizer in due time, and ash will decay. And last but not least, 2 of the trickiest ones, the transfers. Here you can specify what each container can be filtered as, and any resource that goes into those containers is not exposed to the weather. So if you store mixed waste that contains ash will not decay. If you store biological waste, it will not turn into fertilizer, it will just stay exactly like that. The purpose for those is a collection point. You collect them from around your republic, you drop them in here to sort them, and from here with the distribution office you pull them away to process them, sell them, or deal with them in whatever other way you want to. Let's have a look at a little example city. So I have a city with about 3,600 East people here, and there's a few things I want to show you. For this example, I put a nice big container here to collect the waste from a bunch of buildings and the residential areas, and I'm forcing them to actually separate the waste, considering you've done the research. So if you see here, our mixed storage, the only thing it has is burnable waste and other waste which we cannot separate. It's separating the metal scrap and the biological waste. And of course the plastic. Every building produces different things. So industries will produce construction waste. Anything that is a service will produce metal scraps, plastic waste. I haven't come across any that produce aluminum scrap yet, but it's entirely possible that's in the mix. Anything that has people living in it or have people working in it produces biological waste, and hospitals and anything else that deals with chemicals produces hazardous waste. So one setup I like to use is I put a full row of biological waste in my cities, 2 for each other material. Arguably you could remove the aluminum ones, you'll never use them. and keep everything else for burnable waste. That way there is only one collection point instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 collection points for our trucks to go out and collect. Here I build a small one as an example. As you can see, it is filtering things, but its capacity is a lot less. And because its capacity is a lot less, it will keep summoning trucks when it's almost full to start pick it up and take it away. If you don't have a waste one, its building will act as a collection point. And their internal storage is 0.12, which is really small. And when mixed waste piles up, happiness goes down, pollution goes up, people get sick. As for the hospital, over here I have the separation again, burnable waste and other waste, so they are separating things effectively. But it's important to note, they do not filter the hazardous waste. So if the hazardous waste inside it has metal scrap, biological waste, they are not going to filter that. You need to remove the hazardous waste from this mix to turn it into mixed waste, and from there you will have to process it in a separate way as recycling. Again, I like to give them a bunch of containers for hazardous, mixed, and one of each for the rest, with 4 for biological. Again, depends how many things you have around with people. Important to note, if you take the hazardous waste on an open storage like a dump, they will start producing pollution. While this over here, they have 8.81 tons, and if we look at the pollution, there is no pollution. If it overfills in here, it will start creating pollution, and you're gonna have a death spiral. Now you may wonder, how many garbage trucks do I need to accommodate this town, and which ones? Well, the answer is 1. They do not produce that much garbage, and the way those big storages work, so this has 4.43 tons. None of these trucks, either the small ones or the big ones, will go out unless they can get a full container from here. Both small and big ones can collect from those locations. I would recommend using the big ones because it's 1-to-1 ratio. The game seems to function better with that. So the less nodes you have, the better it is, and the better it is for your traffic. Now, that's good. You have your technical service, it's ready to go out and collect stuff. What do you do with the garbage you collected? Well, this is a new setup I've been experimenting with. Each one of those buildings have only capacity for 2 trucks. And in bigger cities and bigger republics, you need a lot more than 2, especially if you have multiple sources trying to drop off into the same spot. So I utilize a road cargo station, which is pretty inexpensive, and connect 3 or 4 transfer stations. And there is a reason I use transfer stations and not dumps. So the truck will get over here, they will dump whatever they collected, and this will automatically be sorted based on my filters. So this one is my mixed waste, so my clean mixed waste with someone forgot to filter their biological, but the other one should be fine. Yeah, so a couple of them were problematic before I set up the filters. Biological waste is stored separately. And then here we have everything else like hazardous, plastic waste, metal scrap, construction waste. Again, when they are stored here, they do not cause pollution. So it's safe even if it's relatively close to the city. Now, biological waste, when it's on an open dump, it will actually start turning into fertilizer and completely cripple your republic, because the trucks will be like, I want to collect biological waste, but there is none here, it's all fertilizer. And then, oh, I need to unload biological waste there. Well, I cannot, because it's already occupied by fertilizer. Something I came across during my Let's Play series. While it's in this, it will not convert into fertilizer even if 100 years pass. So keep that in mind. Also, when you get your technical service, it's so much nicer to say, go here, a single location, and do what you want. And same with a distribution office, this is a single connection that gives them access to 4 of this. So technically, even a single distribution office should be enough to deal with a couple cities and take them into the recycling. Next, let's talk about technical services and what vehicles to use for your waste collection. So if you look at your technical services, you will see you have the ability to choose where you want to store the following resources. In this example, I'm utilizing an interesting connection of a road cargo station that connects into 4 transfer stations, so it automatically filters them for me, and this functions as a drop-off point. So they all drop it at the same spot. As for the vehicles, if we filter by waste trucks, you will see we have these ones that say futures small container loading, which can collect from small containers, and this one that has large container platform that can collect from big containers. You need a combination of both in your Republic, considering you use both small and big waste containers. Now, how does collection work? If we enable the overlay and look at waste, we will see what our city considers a pickup location for waste. So over here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 big ones, and up here we have another small one which is overflowing. If a building doesn't have one of those within reach, it will act as an independent drop-off point. So your trucks will need to go to each and every building and collect what they can. And that's another useful overlay, city planning overlay, and select waste. Anything that is highlighted with green is connected to a building that can collect waste locally. Another important mechanic to explain is separation efficiency and processing efficiency. Let's look at the general separation. It tells that it can consume up to 50 tons of mixed waste in a day. Out of that, if there is, let's say, 1 ton of construction waste, it will be able to remove 65% of that, and the remaining 35% will be converted into other. 87% of metal scrap, 85% of aluminum, 6% of plastic. Meanwhile, we have the scrap separation, which will be able to remove 98% of the metal scrap. So there is 1 ton of metal scrap in our mixed waste. They will remove 98% of that, and the remaining 0.2 will be converted into other. Same with aluminum separation, 97%. So you want the high separation efficiency, so you produce less waste. Now, once you sort your stuff, you want to process it, and processing it means burning it. And when you burn it, you create ash. How much ash? That depends on the efficiency. So if you bring 1 ton of biological waste, they will burn 70% of it with no traces, and the remaining 30% will be converted into ash. So 300 kilos of ash, so 0.3 tons. Fertilizer, 30%. So fertilizer is really bad when it's mixed with your mixed waste. You always want to separate it in some way. Burnable and other, they are what you want after you have filtered everything, because it leaves almost no trace. For burnable, you will burn all of it, and for other, you will burn 80% of it, and there will be just a minuscule 20% of it left over. If you try to burn hazardous without filtering it, you will get half its weight pretty much gone, and the other half will be turned into ash, which is horrible. And plastic burns at 80% as well. Keep in mind, those buildings create a lot of pollution. Now, we spoke about hazardous waste. Hazardous waste, all it does is you have a container with 6.5 tons of hazardous waste, you bring it into this building, they will process it at 3 tons a day, and they will remove the hazardous from the mix. Processing efficiency is 0% of hazardous. So they're going to remove the hazardous, and so let's say they removed 1 ton of hazardous, you will get 1 ton of other. So in reality, this doesn't decrease it, it just removes it cleanses the hazardous, so you can continue processing it with the rest of your recycling. And here we have a recycling setup. Let's have a look at it. So this is our initial drop-off point where we bring all of our mixed waste to be sorted. It's fed into a scrap separation. So let's say we take the first one. It has plastic waste, fertilizer, burnable waste, and other waste. These will be fed into this. If there is any scrap, they are going to remove it, and through an aggregate connection, because metal scrap is considered an aggregate, it will be fed into the steel recycling plant, which will start converting the metal scrap into steel. And then the steel will be stored into this location so we can pick it up. Now, whatever this building processes, it creates an export of mixed waste. So it removes what it can with 98% efficiency, and it loses the rest, and then it pushes whatever is left over to the next building. Keep in mind that the more workers you have here, the faster the transfer, but these will pile up if there is a problem with your setup, which I'll show you momentarily. So next we go into the aluminum separation, and I look, do we have any aluminum to remove? Yes, again, aluminum scrap is an aggregate, so they feed it into the aluminum recycling plant, they convert it into aluminum bars, and it goes over here. Cool, that's done. Now, Anything they process, they feed into the next one, which is the general separation, which will look for construction waste. Again, it will feed it into a gravel recycling plant to turn it into gravel. That can be stored here. And then metal scraps, if there are any that have been missed from here, disregard this from now. This happened because I was experimenting with something, so let's just empty that. Same with aluminum scrap, because we filter them with higher efficiency here. And here we have plastic waste. Plastic waste is considered an open storage export, so we need a factory line to feed it into a plastic recycling plant. And you will see here that our warehouse is full. If I had it connected to this warehouse directly, this would keep going, but now I actually need to pick this up, so they can continue processing. Until they can push out the plastic waste they have in their export, they will never push the remaining big garbage container up here to continue burning it into the incinerator. So effectively, everything that goes through this daisy chain should get here and only have burnable and other left for our incinerators to convert into pretty much ash. So I'm going to use a distribution office just to move that. You can do it with a single track, but I want to display that the moment you take it away, they start processing the plastic again, and things will start flowing both ways. So this is what it's processing, and this is what it's exporting. If I can get it. So this has a tiny little bit of biological waste because it was mixed. Fertilizer, because when you buy mixed waste from the border, it can have any combination in there. At the moment, there is nothing in the game that can remove fertilizer from mixed waste. So all of that fertilizer will turn into ash that we will need to wait to decay. And then our guys over here are burning this. They keep a lot of it here and they push whatever they can into the dump. I found that utilizing the dump with the rail connection and the claw seems to push a lot more of that mixed waste into there and allowing it to actually decay. So if this fills up, it will never push on the other one because this is not exactly an active connection. It just shares part of its output with this. You cannot use forklifts to transfer waste, at least not yet. And the last little detail, where you export anything from your incinerator, you want to make that the only thing you have left over is ash. If you don't, you can take it back in the beginning of the chain and remove any other impurities and convert it into ash again. They will just flow through. But keep in mind, all of those buildings in this chain will need workers. If you have no workers here, nothing will flow to the other buildings. Let's talk a little bit about incinerators. In this example, I have a transfer for big garbage, and I have one container of mixed waste which has been filtered. So I have 50% burnable waste, 20% other waste, and some other unknown capacity of something that the game considers non-important. When it's been processed here, it will completely take care of all the burnable and 80% of the other. Here is a little catch. If we leave it this way, once they produce it, they will push it through this factory belt into this. But when they are in the transfers, ash does not decay. It needs to be in an open storage for it to actually decay. So let's see how will that work. So turn that around so they cannot put it there and store ash over here. Let's speed up so our workers can go there and process it and see how much ash we're going to get. So let's move that here because some of it will stay in the building, and let's get you as well so we can see what's going on. So they began the process, and as you see, it already ticked down once, and now they are done. So we have 0.06 left over in the internal storage of the building. These will not decay in the building. It's not possible while in the building to actually decay. But everything outside of the building, like this one, will slowly decay. On fast speed, I think it's about every 6 seconds, and that's gone. So pretty much we converted a full ton of mixed waste after it has been sorted into under 1 ton of ash that decayed within half a day at most. Meanwhile, if we do this in a slightly different way and say, hey guys, let's give them hazardous waste and let's put it through the waste treatment plant. What the waste treatment plant is meant to do, it's meant to take this, remove the hazardous waste, and leave everything else exactly as is. So let's give them some people. And again, I'm going to let it go into this transfer for the big storage. Again, here you will see that some of it was left over as an export actually in the building, 0.26, and the remaining amount is over here on the big transfer. I'm going to get a truck to pull all of this out. So let's get this guy and say, hey, go over here, load mixed waste, and this will pull whatever mixed waste is here as well, and go unload it over here. So we can process it and see how much ash we're going to produce. Okay, and here we have the mixed waste we just converted from hazardous waste. It's a little less than 6.5 because I forgot to move the direction of the belt, so it did process just a tiny bit before I stopped it. And here we can see it's exactly the same as it was before it became hazardous, with just the hazardous removed. So out of this, if we look at the efficiency, an incinerator cannot really burn fertilizer well, 30%. So out of, if you have, let's say, 1 ton of fertilizer, it will only eliminate 300 kilos, which is nothing. So let's see how much ash we're going to get out of this. 1.56 tons and a little bit in here. So almost 1.5 tons compared to 0 point something from before. And that's why it's very important to sort your waste. And this concludes this tutorial. Please let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed the format of this tutorial, the information in the tutorial, and of course, have this information been useful in your playthrough. I will catch you all on the next one. Bye bye.